Given that we're at the early stages of the Royal Commission, I think it's going to be really difficult to know what kind of cases are going to be presented or what kind of evidence will be presented at the Royal Commission. The types of cases that we have provided advocacy support for our clients have predominantly resolved around people who have challenges that relate to their culture or relate to their language. So as we know, with dementia, a person's memory can go back in time, and then the first language is lost and people revert to their native language. So there are not only issues relating to the fact that people are elderly per se, but issues relating to language and communication, and that can affect the type and quality of services that a person receives. If it's more problematic for them to be able to communicate what they need in terms of services, that can make it more difficult for service providers to accommodate those needs. And then there are cultural issues that can come into play, where some people who do come from CALD backgrounds might feel that their cultural background or practices or beliefs are not being respected in the aged care space. Also, we have issues relating to elder abuse. So we have clients who experience elder abuse from CALD backgrounds, and that can also happen in an aged care service context, and I believe that might come up. I think it's important to do an assessment in terms of understanding what policies, procedures and practices are being implemented by service providers to accommodate people from CALD backgrounds. So we need to look at, service providers need to look at the policies that are in place that respect and uphold and acknowledge people's cultural and linguistic diversities, and how that plays out into practice. And one of the most important things is to ensure that there's cultural competence training that the staff have participated in, and that they are able to implement that in practice in how they support elderly people from CALD backgrounds. This could pop up as an issue. We haven't had clients who brought this up as an issue, but it definitely could be something for consideration, because we know that translation and interpreting costs can be high, and if a lot of the funds are being diverted in that direction, that can impact on how the quantity and the quality of services that an elderly person receives. So I do think it is relevant, because it's the Royal Commission into Aged Care, and this is something that possibly could come up if the participants feel that that's an issue that affects their rights. In order to be able to accommodate people's needs in terms of their cultural backgrounds and their diverse linguistic needs, it's really important that staff are trained and that they receive cultural competence training. It's not fair to expect staff to know everything if they haven't received that training. And I think that if you are talking in the CALD context, the issues and challenges that come up, this will be a very important consideration for the Commission, whether or not cultural competence training is provided. And it cannot be one-off, because we know that there can be a high turnover of staff in the aged care setting. So it needs to be consistent, regular, updated cultural competence training that all staff can receive. Challenge for elderly people from cowed backgrounds is not only might they have a particular vulnerability that relates to ageing. For example, they might have dementia, or they might have some other issue that impacts on their ability to access their rights. They can also have the added challenge of speaking a different language, no longer being able to speak English, not having their cultural needs respected. That can be a double challenge in terms of an older person accessing their rights. And in the Royal Commission, it will be very important to hear the voices of people from cowed backgrounds. However, that can be highly problematic if they are not supported to be able to express their voice and express their opinions. How can we overcome this? It's really, really important that older people from cowed backgrounds are able to access advocacy support. The OPAN network, or the Older Persons Advocacy Network, provides advocacy in each and every state and territory in Australia. So I would encourage anyone who needs that advocacy support, whether they are a carer or an older person themselves, that advocacy support is available to them. They just need to access it.